Welcome to the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Leonidas, and the founder of the Write Your Own Story company. Girl, I can tell you right now, you are definitely enough. Here we value service, sisterhood, connection, laughter, and that super genuine, keep it real, tell you like it is honesty. My hope is at the end of each episode, you realize you can do whatever it is you dream about and that you are not alone with what you struggle with. I'm hoping that you are snapping and clapping and hell yes in your way through each one of these episodes. So if this tracks with you, let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Write Your Own Story podcast. I am so excited to be here with Ashley Jablow. Ashley and I have been chatting off camera, and I just feel like we're kindred spirits already. Ashley, thank you so much for your time.
I'm so glad to be here, Betsy. This is going to be fun.
Absolutely. So today's conversation is for the woman who's doing everything she thought she was supposed to do, but quietly something doesn't feel quite right. Maybe your life looks good on paper. Maybe you've built something you're proud of, but there's this underlying feeling that you're outgrowing it, or maybe that you've outgrown a version of yourself. And the hardest part, you don't necessarily want to blow everything up. You just want to feel like yours again. In this episode, I'm going to sit down with Ashley, the founder of Wayfarer's Collective and creator of Life Design School, whose work is all about helping women step out of the hustle and start intentionally designing lives that actually feel aligned. Oh my gosh, snaps for that. We're going to talk about what it really means to redesign your life without starting from scratch, how to move out of burnout through small, sustainable shifts, and what tiny experiments, what she calls little loops of learning, can be more powerful than any big dramatic change. This conversation is going to feel like a deep exhale and remind you that you don't need to have it all figured out to begin. So if you've been feeling the quiet nudge that something needs to change, this one's for you. Let's dive in. Ashley,
so
this is
lovely.
Oh, thank you. Those intros are truly my favorite to write. I'm just such a nerd and insatiably curious that the research and prepping for the podcast is just as fulfilling as these conversations. So I'm so glad you enjoyed that. I had mentioned off camera that I think this conversation is going to have a huge impact on me. I'm a big pivot kind of girl, and I just with big energy and big feelings and all the things, and ADHD, so I tend to make larger moves, but I'm really inspired by the concept of smaller moves. How do you think today's episode is really going to change people's hearts and minds and the way they think today?
Well, I have to just build on that lovely opener when you said today's going to feel like an exhale. And I think you're absolutely right. That's actually in some ways my intention for today, because I would love to help people, guide listeners to exhale and to almost let some of that air out of the balloon, right? I loved how you talked about when we feel like we've outgrown something. Often I hear from folks who say I feel like I'm wasting my potential, or I'm in a moment or a position that just doesn't feel right. I can't quite figure out what's better or what's new or what's meant to be different. And often it's like a balloon that builds up pressure, you know? And to your point about big pivots, like when the balloon pops, right? When we snap, we got to make change right away, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess an intention for today would be to help people release a little air from that balloon, right? Lower the pressure valve a little bit, exhale for a moment, and think thoughtfully, right?
Yeah.
About what change do I want to make and how could I get started?
Ugh, I love that so much. Even as you were talking, I was when you said exhale multiple times, I was like, oh yeah. Cause I get so excited that I'm like, oh my God, I'm literally holding my breath listening to you because I'm just so excited. So what a beautiful, I'm sure everyone listening also did the same thing. It was like,
yeah,
and I
it
think
feels good, doesn't it?
It feels lovely. And I really think there is something too when women, especially maybe men too. I'm raising 3 boys, so I'm trying, as much as this show is for women, to be very conscious about how I think about things. When we say we're going to do something, we're like, that's it. I'm going to do it. So I started in advertising in New York City, and then was like, no, I'm a corporate girl. I said I was going to do it. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life and be the best at it. And then it just no longer fit the picture of the life I was building. But there was a huge undoing for me to do
Mm.
internally to be like, wait, it's absolutely okay to shift and to like, I was so young, you don't really realize that you do like you conceptually understand how you evolve, but until you're in it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Yeah,
if that
well,
hits with
I
you.
mean, think about like when you graduate from college, for
Mm,
example, and everyone says, "What are you going to do?"
mhm.
Right? Like
Yes. Yeah.
what's the career path you've
Mhm.
chosen, right? We're not like let's not gaslight ourselves, right? Into thinking that like it's just because, well, I've always thought I should, decide on something and then go do it for the rest of my life. Culturally, we're really told that you should pick a lane and stay in it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yes.
then when you don't stay in it, you are flighty or flaky or unmotivated or you don't have direction, right? And
Yes.
I will say for myself, I felt that pressure so much growing up when I, graduating high school, graduating college, even when I went to business school, like
Mhm.
what are you going to do? And I felt so much pressure to make the path make sense,
Yeah.
right? Like to
Yes.
make the story coherent before it had even been written.
Mhm.
And I remember actually when I was in business school doing a lot of informational interviews. And because, any kind of graduate school is basically like a 2-year job search, right? In
Right.
business school,
Totally.
it's all about what's the job I'm going to get. So I did a ton of informational interviews and I would ask the people I was speaking with, like, how did you get to where you are? Because inevitably, like I was interviewing them because I wanted their job, right? Like
Mhm.
I want to be you when I grow up.
Yeah.
And I used to get so frustrated because they would say to me without fail, it didn't matter who I was talking to, well, one thing led me to the next, which led me to the next, and so on. And 20 years later, it all makes sense. But at the time, I had no idea what I was doing. And
Mm.
it was infuriating, right?
Totally.
Because we are expected to know and we are expected to pick a lane and stay in it. I'm going to be in advertising. This is what I do,
Yeah.
right? And that is just not how it works. It's
Mm-mm.
just not. And I imagine, much like you, Betsy, I have spent most of my professional life, and let's be honest, like my life full stop,
Yeah.
trying to undo and unlearn those things in service of understanding who I really am and what is I call it career design or life design. Like, what is the design of my life that is going to best fit me and
Yeah.
how I define success, how I define meaning and purpose and impact. And it's some days it's easy and some days I still feel like squeamish about it, right? It's not,
Totally.
it's an ongoing process for sure.
I love that. God, if I could climb through the screen right now, I would. I just so like I'm like, oh my God, I agree so much. Um, was there a specific moment for you where you were getting the like, this isn't me anymore, or this
Mm,
isn't mine anymore?
absolutely. Yeah. So and I just want to name, I think that that is a feeling or a
Mm.
knowing that I would really encourage people to start looking for. Not
Hmm.
necessarily like because you should go looking for a problem that
Right.
needs to be solved, right? But that is a knowing that I certainly experienced, and it's one that like I would say 100% of the women I work with also experience, right? So it's super common. And it's a really good breadcrumb to pick up.
Yeah.
So for me, and I think we're similar in this, I was very ambitious, still am, like
Mhm.
super high achiever. If I'm going to go get a job, I want it to be the best job I can find,
Yeah.
right? With the
Yes.
best brand I can be affiliated with. And I'm really fortunate in that most of the time I was able to achieve those titles and those affiliations. So I worked in the world of design and innovation for many years at one of the best known companies to do it at, IDEO.
Oh
I
yeah.
then went into the federal government in the Obama administration, actually working in the White House.
Incredible.
Like I was at the pinnacle, right?
Mm.
And I also started having this sense. The way I thought about it was like there was my real life over here on one side and then my work life on the other side. And they just felt really far apart.
Yeah.
And I had just become a new mom. So I was working in government with an 18-month-old. And
Easy peasy.
oh my goodness. And I was actually in a fellowship program. There were just about 30 of us, and I think three women, and
Mhm.
two, maybe three or four women, and like there were only two of us who had um kids,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
like we were really in the minority. And I just remember feeling like I'm not my whole self anywhere. And
Mm.
that was my clue. That was my message. And it was what prompted me to start working with a coach, because I felt like this intense longing for alignment and for integration. And and of course that was just like scratching the surface, because then when I started working with a coach, I realized, oh, wait a minute, I
Yeah.
want a lot of change. I don't just want integration.
Yeah.
But that was the first step for sure.
Gosh, I really think so many women can relate right now for those moments where, like, all of a sudden the career you had, that was kind of the unpeeling of the onion for me as well, as once kids started coming in the picture. And at
Yeah.
first it was like, I really want to keep doing what I'm doing, but I want to be able to, be home at like a day a week with at least a day a week with my son, some sort of configuration that allowed me to be the version of a mom that I wanted to be. Everyone's
Mm-hmm.
version is great. And just, I love the description that's so poignant and crystal clear to be like, when you feel like you're living different lives, maybe it's just a great time to check in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So that feels
Yeah,
lovely.
I think about it kind of like I used the word breadcrumb earlier. Like they're almost like body breadcrumbs
Mm,
that we could pick up. How do you feel during your day?
mm,
Right? It's not
mm,
even just like how am I spending my time and I am I enjoying that? But like how do you feel during the day? Are you
mhm,
spending a lot of your day feeling frustrated or angry or resentful or bored? Right?
mm.
Whatever it might be. I think, yeah, I mean, I could go down that rabbit hole for sure. Because, of course, it makes me think of your values and what it feels like when your values are not being honored. Right. And
Mm,
that's something we could explore if you wanted. But I just generally think that if you are spending your day feeling or experiencing yourself in a way that
mhm.
doesn't feel good, that
Yeah.
is a breadcrumb to pick up and to follow.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love the notion of like, first of all, your values, not, are you able to, just kind of like quietly instill your values without a lot of friction?
Mm,
Or have you even, or if you're feeling that friction, what a beautiful time to take a step back and identify your values. I mean, I know we live
yeah.
the way we live, but it's nice to slow up and do that. Um, the other thing that you said, like one of the morning practices when I actually get up in time to do it, um, is to like really map out in my journal, like, how do I want to feel today?
Mm,
And then design my day around that feeling. And I think, it would be maybe another breadcrumb to be like, if you are having friction being able, I mean, lives, right? Lives.
sure.
But if you're unable to maintain, the goals that you're set out for how you want to feel and who you want to be and how you want to show up, that's like another, I don't know. I'm just validating, but I just think that that's super, super interesting. Um,
Yeah.
okay. So my mind immediately is like, well, then if your values aren't being met, we must blow up the whole thing and go do something else. Like, but I love, this is where I'm so excited to learn from you. We've talked about, okay, what does that feel like in your day to day? How do we recognize it? How does it feel in your body? Can you evaluate it against your values? But, how do we think about change and like not being as dramatic as one might be?
Yeah. I mean, let's just like acknowledge the urge to blow it all up.
Yep.
I mean, I will say I am now maybe a woman of a certain age who is starting to care less about what people think, and
Mhm.
maybe
It's the
having like,
best, isn't it?
it is really great.
It's
And
the
maybe
best.
having like a little bit more sort of feminine rage rise to the surface these
Yes.
days. So yes, the urge to burn it all down, or the
Mhm.
urge to snap, right? And just be like, I'm done.
Mhm.
We all succumb to it at
Mhm.
times, right?
Mhm.
And I would offer that, as much as we all have had that desire to like storm into our boss's office and rage quit on a Tuesday afternoon,
Mhm.
that kind of drastic action is not great, to say the least, right? It's not
Right.
great for our bank accounts. It's not great for our families. It's not great for our nervous systems.
No.
Like it feels, as much as it scratches that itch of immediate action, it doesn't actually set us up for long-term success,
Mm.
right? And you know that expression, like, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Like, we think that the distance between where I am today and where I want to get to just happens like that, right? But
Right.
the reality is, it happens through small, consistent, iterative action every single day, right?
Mm.
It
Yeah.
starts with considering, sure, where do I want to go in the future? And then, like, not how can I go there today or go there tomorrow, but how
Right.
can I begin to lay that path towards it over time? And I have found, to make this really practical, when people come to me, to explore coaching, often they will come because they know there's something that's not working in their life, especially in their career, um, or they will come because they've just been laid off.
Mm.
And there are lots of reasons. I mean, I've been laid off. Like, there
Same.
are incredible, smart, talented, creative people who are part of what I call the layoff club, right? So
Yep.
it's through no fault of their own that, of course, that they're coming to me and saying, I need help, right?
Yeah.
Understandably. And when you think about it, the person who comes and says, I know I'm unhappy, I'm currently employed, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, they have a much more maybe sustainable, journey ahead of them, right?
Mhm.
As hard as it is to make change within the constraints of, I already have a job, how am I supposed to interview and all that, right?
Yeah.
But they have a sustainable, safe pathway towards change because their basic needs are being met,
Right.
right?
Right.
Whereas the person who doesn't have a paycheck coming in, there's anxiety there, there's overwhelm, there's urgency,
Yes.
right? And plenty of people have made great, smart moves from that position, right? But
Yes.
it sort of mimics that, like, I've blown it all up and now what do I do?
Right.
Right? And
Right.
it can be a scary place to design from that starting point, right? So
Yes.
again, we all get that urge, and I would encourage you to consider, a longer time horizon and how you might take smaller steps towards that change, because it's ultimately more sustainable for you.
I love the note that you made around the effect it has on your nervous system. Um, I think one of the greatest skills that I have learned in my 40s is to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and to be able to
Mm,
sit in the uncomfortable. I
yeah.
still don't like it, but I can do it. And, it's hard. I find for me, and I would love your perspective on this, that my jump to be like, blow it up, run, change is so fear based.
Mm,
Fear of things that are driven from the past, but don't necessarily have proof to substantiate that they are the same. It's just my body recognizes the feeling and it's like, girl, we
mm,
gotta go. Uh, so, but I've really, and that can apply to, gosh, everything, home life, work life, relationships, friendships, you name it. Um, but I think for me, it has been life changing to learn how to
mm,
sit in the uncomfortable and like what I've discovered on this show and in my own journey that like life is just the messy middle. Like,
mm,
and so until you can learn to love the messy middle, that's the good stuff. That's where,
yeah.
all the growth and the learning and the change happens. So I know we've talked about, and I love and so appreciate, because I feel like a lot of people feel that tension at work where it's like something's got to change, et cetera, or laid off. Oh my gosh, I have so much empathy. I've also been laid off, and it's just so hard not to take
Mm,
it personal, but it's absolutely has not personal.
yeah.
What about when people are feeling that at home? Maybe it's their relationship, maybe it's their family construct, maybe it's just how they can show up for themselves outside of work, but it's a different set of cooks in the kitchen.
Mm.
Um, what are your thoughts on how people sort of slow up and take that approach when it's not necessarily work related, when they're like, okay, I can just go interview for other jobs or I can explore other career paths, when it's probably some of those small shifts that are feeling just a little off, or you can't even identify it yet, but something just feels off at home?
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, of course, it's different contexts,
Mhm.
right? You're
Sure.
right. Like you can't go interview for a new family.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you could, I don't
Yeah,
know. But,
totally.
and I think it's actually very, very similar. Like, I'm not sure that we even need to differentiate between I'm feeling some kind of discontent or dissatisfaction at work versus dissatisfaction at home,
Mhm.
because it still starts with tuning into what's going on with you, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think that we live, especially busy women, busy moms who are wearing lots of hats. And I'm always the first to put myself in line, right?
Yeah.
To say this, but we live a lot of our lives in any context on autopilot, and
Yes.
we don't often pause
Mm.
to really be curious about what's going on with me right now,
Mm.
right? And the frustration you might feel with your boss is a different flavor, but it still might be frustration when you're talking to your kiddo about picking up their laundry and putting it in the hamper,
Wouldn't that be me?
right?
Wouldn't that be me
Um,
if that happened?
so I think, I mean, the difference, I suppose, just thinking out loud, the difference is, you know, in work you can say like, this is what I want, and I'm either going to create it for myself, or I'm going to find a role description that matches it, right? I'm
Yeah.
going to find a company and culture that matches it. In a family or in a home or personal context, there's I think there's more assessment around the relationship,
Mhm.
and how do you redesign the family dynamic or the relationship dynamic. And that in some ways can feel even more scary,
Mhm.
right? Than
Oh,
putting
yeah.
on your power suit and going to get in, a job, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like having to negotiate with your partner, like, I really need more time for myself,
Mhm.
or setting limits with your children. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, oh my God, Betsy, I just realized I had to do this last night, right?
Oh, tell me,
Because,
tell me.
my lovely 13-year-old son, like most kids his age, loves video games, right?
Totally.
And
Yes.
and he's an only child, which I love. I don't really need more, and I'm
Mhm.
I'm an only child, so I get it.
Mhm.
But he also depends on his parents quite a bit
Sure.
for companionship, right? And last night he said to me, "Mom, will you come hang out with me while I play Fortnite?" Just like, really, really, like, will you
Mm.
sit with me while I do this?
Mhm.
And usually I'm a yes. And what I've realized recently is that I can't be a yes until I have done something for myself. Because
Ooh.
what happens is I will sit with him, we'll hang out, and then we go right into the bedtime routine. And then I get really tired,
Yep.
and then I get resentful,
Yep.
and then bedtime is a bust, right? So
Yes.
last night I had to say really explicitly, I'm happy to come sit with you, but first I need to take time for myself. And he started, well, why? You said you were going to come sit, you can't take too long, all that, right? And I said, you know what, this isn't about how long it takes.
Mhm.
I'm going to take the time that I need, and when I am done, I will be in here. And I went and I stretched, and I went and I listened to my audiobook, and I took some time for myself, right? So
Mhm.
I maybe have taken us way off track, but the
I'm
notion that,
I'm
like,
literally on every word. I love this.
you need to learn who you are and what you need in
Yeah.
any context, right? And
Yeah.
then practice advocating for that, advocating for yourself. And that is true if you're at work, and that is true in your personal life.
I love that story. I think every mom is like, yes. But what a beautiful example of being like, just a reminder that you cannot pour from an empty cup. And like,
Mm,
we all know the feelings of feeling resentful, of
yeah.
being like, I have just given, given, given without filling. So thank you for sharing that. All the moms are like, yes, yes, 1,000 yeses. Um, I really appreciate that you kind of have to know what you need and how to advocate for yourself.
Mm,
I think those are two of the hardest things for women, to be able to check in and say, what do I need? Because we feel safe when everyone else has what they need.
mm-hmm.
How, and, so tying it kind of the concept of little loops of learning, because, okay, this is a three-parter, so buckle
Yeah.
up. So, one, we need to learn how to advocate for our, or excuse me, what we need to
Mm-hmm.
figure out what we're going to learn in our little loop of learning. And then we have to do the scary advocating thing, like setting a boundary, which makes me ever so sweaty. And then we have to be able to do a loop of learning, which
Mm-hmm.
often comes with the tension of maybe that didn't work,
Yeah.
and untangle I'm a failure from your little loop of learning, not like crashing the system again. So, like,
Mm.
how does this little loops of learning process work, knowing that these are real rubs for women?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I love this to kind of build up to this question, Betsy, and I'm going to maybe take a step back and
Mhm.
explain what a little loop is and
Wonderful.
why I think it is the way forward. Okay?
Okay.
So we've already talked about how a really big like rip off the band-aid is not good for lots of reasons, right?
Yes.
And one thing that's in sort of implied in any kind of change that we want to make in our lives is that we know why we want to change,
Mm.
right? We know the purpose. I like think of it as like for the sake of what,
Yeah.
right? So you might say, I want to get a new job or I want to start a business. Why do you want to do that?
Hmm.
Right? That's really important information first.
Yes.
Then I think the question is, why do I want to take action? Like, what's the purpose of taking a step forward to this goal or this change? Right? You mentioned failure, right? We've talked
Hmm.
about fear. I
Hmm.
think a lot of times, like let's say, and let's see if I can help make this really tangible. Let's say you want to start a new business because you want freedom with your family and you want to love what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So you could go from 0 to 100 and immediately like take out a commercial lease and buy all the inventory and set your opening day and nobody comes,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Whew, that makes me sweety,
Me
right?
too.
Like that,
My stomach hurts. Oh my God. Keep going so it gets better.
right? Yeah, I know. Okay, I promise it gets better. So,
Just kidding.
so you could do that. That would be like the urge to blow up our life and start fresh, right?
Hmm.
When you are, we know that that's not the way we want to do it, right?
Right.
So, a little loop of learning consists of 3 steps.
Oh, I love
The
this.
first is planning,
Hmm.
and specifically planning what is my first action,
Mm.
right? And particularly what is the smallest first action I can take,
Ooh.
right? So in the case of starting your business,
Yes.
the first action is probably not renting a space,
Right.
right?
Right.
The first action might look like doing a pop-up.
Hmm.
It could. But I would even offer that that's too big.
Hmm.
That's too big. I would say the first action, let's say you have a vision for a retail store where you sell bath and body products. I don't know.
Yeah. Sounds
The
great.
first smallest thing you might decide to plan for in your little loop is I want to get some feedback around this one candle that I
Mm.
love, that I would love to carry in my store, right? That when you're planning in that first portion of the loop, right?
Yeah.
You're thinking about what's the smallest action I can take and for the sake of what, right?
Mm.
Why do I want to take this action? Well, I want to take this action because I want to learn, is this a product that people might want to buy?
Mhm.
I want to learn, do other people like it? How much money would they spend on it?
Mhm.
What might they want to pair it with for other purchases, right? So, your first step in this little loop is to plan the action you're going to take. I'm going
Mhm.
to host 10 girlfriends at my house for wine and cheese, and I'm going to show them this product, and I'm going to see what they think of it, right?
Mm.
So that's the first step in your loop. I'm going to plan the smallest first action I can take. The next part of the loop is to actually take action. So
Mm.
set a date, have people over, buy the wine, get the candle, right? And maybe a couple of questions you want to ask people,
Yeah.
right? That's it. Taking action is actually kind of sometimes a hard step, right? But it's
Without
part
a
of it.
doubt. We
We
can get
got to
stuck
take
in that
action.
planning phase. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So, first step, we plan. Second step, we act. The third step, and this gets back to why do we take action at all,
Mhm.
is what did we learn,
Mhm.
right? It's learning and then updating based on what we learned. So you host your friends at your house and they all say, "You know what? I love this candle." Excuse me. Um and I'd be willing to spend $25 on it, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I've learned that
Mhm.
there is interest in this,
Mhm.
right? And now I'm going to update what my next small action is going to be. Excuse me.
Sure.
I'm going to update what my next small action is going to be based on what I learned. So, when you start taking action through these little loops of learning, you're planning, you're acting, and then you're updating. What ends up happening is you actually reduce the potential for failure,
Yeah.
right? You do,
Absolutely.
because you are not taking out a 10-year lease on a commercial space. You're having friends over for wine and cheese,
Yeah.
right? And the worst thing that happens is they say, I don't like that candle. I'm not
Right.
into it. I wouldn't want to spend money on it, right?
Yeah.
And the best thing that happens is, oh, I learned something, right?
Totally.
And the learning can inform what you do next, right?
I
So
love that.
with little loops of learning, you are, I mean, it's funny, such a small thing can be so powerful because you learn and that propels your forward progress. You reduce the risk of failure because you're taking really small, bite sized steps.
Mhm.
And you actually grow your confidence along the way because you see, yes, I can do this. I am doing this,
Mhm.
right? You're not just
Absolutely.
planning, you're actually doing. So I really believe that everything can be chunked down into little loops,
Yeah.
and that is the way forward to make any kind of meaningful change in your life.
I love that so much. I think I just finished like a deep dive in research in the last month around confidence. And so much of it
Mm,
was continuing to hammer home the point through conversation, through research, et cetera, that confidence comes as a result of action. Confidence is not what you have to start. So
yeah,
many of us wait to feel confident before taking the leap. But I love so often that's the big leap, right? But if
yeah,
we do these little loops, we're building these like small foundational bricks of confidence based on these small actions and these feedback loops of learning. That
yeah,
really is like what a great foundation to stand on.
yeah, yeah,
So when people are like, okay, conceptually, absolutely. How do you pick the first loop? Because they're all so little. And
yeah,
meaningful, absolutely meaningful. So when you're like, okay, this is the store, I want to carry the bath products. I would love to carry an assortment. I would love these to be giftable and drive repeat visitors, etc. Like, and we're going to start with the candle, which I love, but how do we know not to start with the bath bomb? Or how do we know
mm,
not to?
mhm.
So, how do we pick our steps?
Oh gosh. Let's just acknowledge, Betsy, if I knew the exact recipe for any first or next step,
Yeah,
right? I would be a gazillionaire. I would be selling this left, right, and center.
totally.
Um, so I have some guidance, and then maybe it's kind of like a yes and. So
Love those.
I would say the question I'm always asking myself when I'm thinking about what is the first step or what's the next step is what is the smallest, fastest, cheapest thing
Love that.
that I could do or try right now to learn the most,
Yeah.
right? So, smallest, fastest, cheapest. So again, like you don't even have to have a wine and cheese party if you don't want to spend the money on that. Gather some moms at the park and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, will you smell this?"
Yeah. Right?
As
Yeah.
weird as that might be, right?
No, totally.
Um, so I love to use that question
Mm.
as a guide.
Mhm.
And let's acknowledge there is no single right answer here. And this
Yeah.
is where I feel like I'd be curious to know your perspective because so much of any kind of meaningful change involves learning and practicing trusting ourselves,
Mhm.
right? And
Yes.
being able to hold ourselves through, like you said, the messy middle, the discomfort of, I don't know if this is quote unquote the right thing.
Mhm.
And I'm informed, I'm smart, I'm
Mhm.
creative, I can stay with myself when things get hard. I'm going
Mhm.
to trust myself that I'm going to try something. And if it doesn't work, first I'll learn.
Yeah.
If it does work, I'll learn, right?
Totally.
Either
Right.
way.
Yeah.
And no matter what, I'm on my own side throughout the whole thing,
Yeah.
right?
That's the
And
best.
that's what's the secret recipe for self-trust, Betsy? What is
Practice.
that?
Practice and the
Practice,
evidence
yeah.
that no matter what happens, you're gonna be just fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we go through I've learned to love closed doors. I've learned to love tripping and falling. I would like it to be a little bit more privately, but beggars
Mhm.
can't be choosers because that really like that's where you learn the most. You learn the most
Yeah.
about yourself and you learn the most about your quest. So I have learned to love it. And I love your perspective of what is like the next right thing. It's like what is the most tangible.
Mhm.
And the only other thing I that comes to mind for me is like really for me is to be so clear on my why and how I want to feel and like what the vision is for my life, not for success. Um, and that is like my North Star. And so when I feel like I get lost in the success hustle and I've kind of gotten away from my big dreams of feelings and being, then I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
it's time to recalibrate a little bit. So maybe it's also something to the effect of like, what is, what feels closer to your why? And how can you test that out? Like, can you,
Mhm.
I don't know, go freelance if you've been in corporate? Can you test a freelance gig on the side? And does it feel free or does it feel
Yeah.
so scary and overwhelming because now you have to do your own billing and all the things?
Yeah.
But I love the idea of the small, like kind of the smallest, fastest, cheapest. I think I interviewed another dear friend on this show, and she's a Jay Shetty certified life coach. And, is always talking about we get in sort of this like analysis paralysis of to be like,
Mm.
what is next? What do we do? What is the next right step? And she's just often like, take the step and make it right, kind of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
embrace it, just make it a good one kind of
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, I also sometimes wonder like what if there are many right steps?
I love that.
Like what if I think especially for high achieving women,
Hmm.
for those of us who kind of grew up being told or believing that like you've got to be smart, you've got to get the right answer,
Hmm.
there's this sort of assumption. I felt this way with parenting a lot, actually. There's
Same.
this assumption that like there's this rule book that's going to come down from the sky and like land on my desk and I can just flip through the pages and it's going to tell me what to do,
Mm-hmm.
and I see this with coaching clients a lot. It's like, well, what do I do next?
Hmm.
And what if there are any number of right next steps? And
Hmm.
sure, one step might make it harder to go to, a different direction, or it might make that other direction less relevant.
Hmm.
But again, you got to get started, right?
Right.
It's funny. It reminds me, my mom has always said to me, Ashley, you've got to get on the bus. You can always change your seat later. Right. But you've
Ooh.
got to get on the bus. And like that metaphor really extends. Like if you get on the wrong bus, you can just get off and get on a different one, right? You
Yeah.
can change your seat. You can decide, I want to go that way, but you got to get going.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. I've never heard of it as you can change your seat.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the small moves, and I love
That's
that.
the
Oh my
small move.
gosh,
Yeah.
this is incredible. Um, what about if it is I feel I come across a lot of women, and I am the first to raise my hand in this as well, where we just feel stuck and overwhelmed in the moment. Um, how do we apply the little loop of learning or the next step when we're in, like, as you said, like the autopilot and we're feeling
Hmm.
like stuck and overwhelmed? How do we slow up and take sort of the next little loop of learning?
Yeah. I mean, I think the first thing that comes to mind is we have to pause ourselves,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
You know, mindfulness is a thing for a reason, right?
Yeah.
We have to start flexing and strengthening the muscles of noticing, wait a minute, I don't feel good right now.
Yeah.
Or wait a minute, my inner voice is saying one thing and I'm doing something else. Or
Mhm.
this environment is doing something else, right? When I work with coaching clients, I take people through really four phases
Mm.
of making change, and the excuse me, the first one is really discovery,
Mm.
right? Like we have to pause and be curious and learn about ourselves and consider who we are at this moment. And none of that can happen if we're not actually pausing first,
Yep.
right? And pausing doesn't have to look like a week-long yoga retreat or a silent meditation retreat. Pausing can look like 30 seconds in
Mm.
the bathroom with the door closed, just quiet,
Mm.
right? It doesn't have to be big. In fact, when you're just starting out, it shouldn't be big because it starts. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat today.
That's all right.
It shouldn't be big because it starts to feel overwhelming if
Mhm.
you hold yourself to, well, I've got to take an afternoon off or I've got to get to that yoga retreat. And
Yeah.
instead, like, wait a minute, I just noticed that I'm about to do something or I've just done something that doesn't feel good.
Mhm.
Like, okay, I'm not going to make a story up about it, I'm just noticing, right? It really starts with paying attention.
Mm. I love that. How do you feel, talking about mindfulness, and also we talked before about how things feel in our body when someone is like, how do we know what is our truth versus like the thought loops? How does that feel different in our body?
Mm. So I think a couple things. I think truth in our body feels like harmony.
Hmm.
It feels like flow.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like contentment. Um, it it feels good, and I don't love that word, but it feels good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually going back to values. Our values, when they are being honored, we feel those feelings.
Yeah.
We sense flow, alignment, integration, wholeness, right?
Yeah.
Ease, whatever those words might be for you, and however you experience them in your body. The thing that's interesting about this and anyone who's been on any kind of personal development journey or spiritual journey, even, you realize that you are always continuing to uncover and unravel more what feels true,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you get like a first version of it as you get started, and you can start using that as like your homing device, right? And then with more time, you start getting more clear about what's true for you and who you are at your most authentic and what that feels like. But I would definitely say when your values are in harmony with your world, that is a great indication that you are following your North Star, that you are in the direction of your truth. And that feels like integration, flow, aliveness.
Mhm.
It's a great kind of directional signal.
I love that. I love that because our thought loops get so fast and so loud that like they're really, and if we think about that short pause versus the yoga retreat, like what are the clues and indicators that we're looking for? So that's so
Mm-hmm.
helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you had mentioned 4 steps, discovery being the first,
Yeah.
flowing up, pausing, checking in. What comes after that?
Yeah. So there are 4 steps. So
Mhm.
discover is the first one.
Mhm.
Once you discover, and I think it's especially important to take stock and do that work as women in midlife, perhaps,
Yeah,
right? Because who we thought we were when we were in our 20s is very different than who we are today, right?
agreed.
So pausing again to reflect and discover, like, who am I at this point in my life. The next phase is to define, and define looks like, what are my values,
Mm.
right? What
Mhm.
matters to me? What are my priorities?
Yeah.
Even, you mentioned success earlier. Like, how do I define success,
Mhm.
right? The third phase is to imagine.
Hmm.
So, we as adults often don't flex our creative muscles around dreaming and visioning and playing and
Mm.
imagining, right? But
Yeah.
you have to have that future in mind
Yeah.
in order to know where you want to go, right? In
Yeah.
order to take those steps. So, imagine is the third. And then the fourth one is really, I call it iterate. It's
Mm.
all about little loops of learning. It's where the action happens.
Yeah.
So, iterate is all about, what is the experiment I can run? What is the thing I can try? What is the smallest, fastest, cheapest, next step in service of moving me forward? So, it's interesting because you can, zoom in on iterate and little loops of learning, and there's all this beautiful stuff that can happen in addition to it,
Mhm.
discovering who you are, defining what matters to you, imagining that future. And then with all of that taken together, you can start to take action.
I love that. That I and again, your ability to break down change into these like very soft places to land,
Mm,
and like to really like minimize the fear and like the risk associated is just like really really lovely and so smart. And I'm just, like I said, I was like, I when I was prepping for this, I was like, this is a conversation that I need to hear, let alone be a part of today. So
oh,
I,
I
I
love
just
that.
absolutely love your perspective. um I love the concept of like, especially women, so much innately of what we are is creative. Um, that doesn't mean that we're also not incredible at organizing, processing, operations, all the things. Not to say that those aren't creative roles. But if a woman is like, okay, I do miss that flow that comes from creativity, or
Mm.
I've never considered myself a creative, but like I can imagine that that's a gap in my personal growth. How do you encourage women to reconnect with their creativity?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I smile because now I have a completely different relationship with my own creativity than I
Mm,
did when I was younger. Now I love my creativity. Like, me and creativity are real buds these days.
love that.
But it was not something that I always felt connected to. And in fact, I had a very, I think, rigid definition of what creativity actually was.
Mm.
So I grew up with my mom, and she is an incredible artist, a
Ooh,
beautiful watercolorist, and she's the artist in the family. She's a jewelry maker, she's a painter, she's all sorts of things, and I wasn't that one, right? I was maybe a doodler,
yeah,
but I wasn't. I saw creativity as art.
yeah,
Like, creativity equals art, and that does not equal Ashley. Like,
yeah.
that's the equation, that's the math I was doing. And over the years, working in design and innovation, starting to see that creativity actually looks like problem solving. It
Mhm.
looks like ideation and brainstorming. It looks like making things.
Mhm.
And then now it's funny because ironically, I have grown into my identity as an artist, and now I do create products and tools to support people in creativity. Um, but what I've come to see is that everything we've been talking about, Betsy, you know, designing your life,
Mhm.
right, is a creative act. And the sooner we can kind of get on board with that, the better, right?
Mm.
And what I would encourage people to think about, if you have a similar mental model that creativity is only art,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it includes art, right, of all kinds. But if you have ever planned a dinner party,
Mm.
that's creative, right? That's creativity. If you have ever tried to figure out the school pickup and after school activity schedules, right? Like
Yeah.
that's creative.
Uh-huh.
If you have ever tried to figure out how to help two coworkers get along better and like
Mm.
have a productive conversation, that is creativity. There is creativity in absolutely everything. And the sooner, like I said, the sooner we can start looking for examples of creativity in all aspects of our lives, the sooner we can start to see, oh, actually, I am creative.
Mm.
I am a problem solver. I am imaginative. I love trying new recipes. Creative,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's in everything, and it's in all of us.
I love that. And just kind of like that ability to take a step back and see what already exists within you.
Hmm.
That's so
Yeah.
lovely.
And you don't have to, like, again, you don't have to be an artist to be creative, right?
Yeah.
You can find and harness your creative spirit through lots of activities and daily life.
I'm also getting this like feeling that, life sort of is taught to you in such black and white measures, and that like really truly it is very gray.
Yeah.
The definition of creativity, what you said you wanted to do versus what you want to do now, who you were in your 20s to who you are in your 40s. I mean, it's all just kind of, I wish, gray had a better rap. But it's not so
Yeah.
black and white, and like the ability to expand our thinking relative to the day to day, but also like relative to what your life can be or how you can feel.
Mhm.
And what I also loved in what you just said is that like we really do have more power and control than we think.
Mm.
I really felt like I did life by the book as best I could. I followed all the rules that ascended onto my desk, the arbitrary rules that ascended onto my desk.
Yeah.
And life still took a heck of a turn. And that's when I finally was like, I'm writing my own rules. But
Mm.
I didn't have the rules. I'm still working on the rules, but like I also realized that like they're gray, and I
Yeah.
think this is just like a really beautiful example of like we have much more control over the outcome and the feelings of our life than we think.
Mm. Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, I have so many thoughts in my head. I mean, I think that yes, we do have so much more control. I would maybe offer that I think about it as agency.
Yeah, that's a
That
better
there
word. Yeah,
that
I
there
like that.
is, and I mean, gosh, I love controlling things wherever I can, right? And you have more within your grasp when it
Mhm.
comes to designing intentionally how you live your life,
Mhm.
right? There are lots of things that are out of our control
Yes.
and that we actually don't want to try to control. It's just like a fool's errand, right?
Yes.
And for the places where you can say, this is what I want,
Mhm.
right? Or maybe in the places where you're like, I don't know what I want, but I know it's not this,
Mhm.
right? Because that's a very common place to start.
Yeah.
To just, we have to do the brave, honest work
Mhm.
of acknowledging where things are off track in our lives.
Yeah.
And then to your point, we have the agency
Yeah.
to do things about it. Because I believe in reincarnation. Like I think I've had some shots at this already, and I hope I
Yeah.
get more.
Yeah.
And also, this is my one life, right?
Yeah.
This is your one life. And so, paying attention to what's not working or what you're longing for or what you're wishing for, and then saying, well, what do I have agency to begin to create for myself? I think
Mhm.
is kind of the whole point.
Totally. I love that word agency. I love that shift. And that feels like when we're at the, just bringing it full circle to the top of the show, when you're trying to control something in your body, it feels like you're holding your breath and you're holding on so tight and you're doing the things. But agency is like, it's liberating. It's
Yeah.
like, I can relax. I have agency. There's a
Yeah.
lot that I can't control, but like, I do have the pen in my hand. Like, let's
Hmm.
give it a go.
Yeah. Write
I
your own story, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's right. I want to make sure that we land this plane because I know that you have a hard stop, as do I, but this has just been like a breath of fresh air. Ashley, if people want to work with you or find more of your content, how can we find you? How can we interact with your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to connect with listeners. I'm very active on LinkedIn and Instagram, just
Love
at
that.
Ashley Jablow. I would say if anyone's curious about life design and about how to get started, I would really encourage folks to go to my website, lifedesignschool.co.
Hmm.
I have a number of different free resources and other tools. There's some great on demand workshops that you can take that can help you diagnose, for example, the problem you're trying to solve. I also have a number of creative life design tools and resources, including a set of 4 reflection journals that I've created using my own watercolor art, actually.
Look at
It's called
you.
100 Days of Designing My Life. And so each of the 4 journals actually mirrors those 4 phases I was talking about:
Hmm.
discover, define, imagine, and iterate. And I'll just say, Betsy, if I can,
Please.
a creative risk that I'm taking as we speak is I have just announced the launch of a new reflection card deck that I'm creating,
Amazing.
called the Little Deck of Sweet Reflections. And it again merges my art and a number of words that have been really powerful reflection openers for me. And I'm just in the process of getting them printed, and you can learn more about them at Life Design School as well.
Ashley, what a incredible business portfolio that you have built. And I love the merger of, your creativity sort of by definition of art unfolding and being
Yeah,
like this beautiful blend. Um, it's incredible. So everyone,
thank you.
please go check out Ashley's work. Um, Follow her where she is active. I don't know about, I'm just feeling so calm and like an
Oh, I
absolute breath of,
love it. I
yeah,
love
a
it.
breath of
I
fresh
am
air.
too. I
Oh, I'm
am
so
too.
glad. Ashley, thank you so much. Everyone, please go check out her work. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Well, that's the end of this episode, but promise me, you won't stop here with whatever it is you're feeling or dreaming about. I hope you leave today feeling empowered to live life just as you see fit. If this podcast was helpful to you, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. I genuinely just want to help women live the life they dream about. So if this type of content tracks with you, subscribe to this podcast or visit our website, writeyourownsstory.co, to download digital courses or to grab a journal and a mug to just dream in and dream with. It's your life, lady. Do you. And just remember, I'm rooting for you and you've totally got this.